Franz Kafka, Chapter 8. Although Kafka's diaries are full of bizarre and night dreams, his warm human heart made it impossible for him to overlook the realities of life. His position at the Workers' Accident Insurance afforded many contacts with those whose claims came to his desk, and he once remarked in a mixture of admiration and impatience how humble these little people were. Their situation occupied him to such an extent that he even projected a scheme for improving society, a plan which he dropped later in his creative period. But he shared Henry David Thoreau's conclusion that, quote, the masses of men lead lives of quiet desperation, close quote. It is interesting that Kafka was one of the first to touch upon the despair of the key figure in the economic system that is now engaged in a life and death struggle in Europe, the salesman, whose function in free enterprise is that of a missionary. Gregor Samsa, in Kafka's Metamorphosis, suffers from the same overpowering sense of futility as his French colleague of a generation later, Monsieur Martin, in Jean Anouilh's Pisces Noires. Both of them escape into dream life or insanity, and both their stories suggest more clearly the breakdown of society than Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, in which Willy Loman's fate remains a personal tragedy within an otherwise normal or at least self-assured society. Kafka was hardly a reformer. He was, likewise, not a great thinker, philosopher, or theologian. There remains something enigmatic about him that eludes classification. His own life was not the exclusive key to an understanding of his work, yet it speaks to the condition of many who are searching for the causes of our present moral exhaustion. His life may be, after all, symbolical of some of Europe's problems. It was perhaps less important that he was alienated from society, his family, and his profession. These were a tragic condition, all of the harder to endure as society denied him the recognition as a writer which he is now receiving posthumously. But that his clairvoyant vision failed to transcend life's obstacles and experiences, man's victories of faith, or even man's capacity for endurance, that was his real tragedy. He could not envision the meaning of suffering. He is passing on this problem to us in the imperishable image of his art. Is this Kafka's way of indirect communication? Is it a reproach to the Christian believer whose church knows so much about the meaning of suffering while its members have done so little to prevent it? Is Kafka's mute query rising from the grave now as some of his characters used to return to the living, unable to find their rest?